Wonder of the Wasteland, Chapter 8. Consciousness returned to Adam. He was lying under an ironwood tree, over branches of which a canvas had been stretched, evidently to shade him from the sun. The day appeared to be far spent. His head seemed to have been relieved of a hot metal band. His tongue was no longer bursting in his mouth. The boil of his blood had subsided and his skin felt moist. Then he heard the rough voice of a man talking to animals, apparently burros. Movement of his body was difficult and somewhat painful. However, he managed to sit up and look around. Hide-covered boxes and pack saddles with duffel and utensils of a prospector were littered about, and conspicuous among the articles near him were 3 large canvas-covered canteens, still wet. Upon the embers of a smoldering fire steamed a black iron pot. A little beyond the first stood a very short, broad man, back turned, and he was evidently feeding choice morsels of some kind to 5 eager and jealous burros. "Spoiled, every darn one of you," he was saying, and the thickness of his voice belied its roughness. "Why, I used to have burros that could lick labels off tin cans and call it a square meal." Then he turned and espied Adam watching him. "Hello, you've come too," he said with interest. Adam's gaze encountered an extraordinary-looking man. He could not have been taller than 5.5 feet, and the enormous breadth of him made him appear as wide as he was long. He was not fat. His immense bulk was sheer brawn, betokening remarkable strength. His dusty, ragged clothes were patched like a crazy quilt. He had an immense head, a shock of shaggy hair beginning to show streaks of gray, and a broad face tanned as dark as an Indian's, the lower half of which was covered with a scant, grizzlied beard. His eyes, big, dark, rolling, resembled those of an ox, and his expression seemed to be one of set tranquility. Adam's voice was a husky whisper. "Where am I? Who are you?" "Young man, my name's Dismukes," came the reply. "And you're 90 miles from anywhere, and alive, which is more than I'd bet on yesterday." The words brought Adam a shock of memory. Out there, the desert smoked, sweltering in the spent heat of the setting sun. Slowly, Adam lay back upon his blanket and bundle that had been placed under him for a bed. The man sat down on one of the hide-covered boxes, fastening his great eyes upon Adam. I'm all right," whispered Adam. "Yes, but it was a close shave," replied the other. "You said something about yesterday. Tell me." Dismukes fumbled in his patched vest, and fetching forth a stumpy pipe, he proceeded to fill it. It was noticeable that he had to use his little finger to press down the tobacco into the bowl, as the other fingers of his enormous hands were too large. Adam had never before seen such scarred, calloused hands. "It was the day before yesterday I run across you," began Dismukes, after a comfortable pull at his pipe. "My burro Jenny has the best eyes of the pack outfit. When I seen her ears go up, I got to looking hard and presently spied you staggering in a circle. I'd seen men do that before. Sometimes you'd run, and again you'd wag along, and then you'd fall and crawl. I caught you and had to tie you with my rope. You were out of your head, and you looked hard, all dried up, tongue black and hanging out. I thought you were done for. I poured a canteen of water over your head and then packed you over here where there's wood and water, you couldn't make a sound. But all the same, I knew you were raving for water. I fed you water a spoonful at a time. Every little while, I emptied a canteen over you. I was up all night with you that night, and you recovered awful slow. Yesterday, I'd not have gambled much on your chances, but today, you came round. I got you to swallow some soft grub, and I guess you'll soon be pretty good. You'll be weak, though. You're awful thin. And I'm curious about how much you weighed. You look as if you might have been a husky lad. I was, whispered Adam, 185 or 90. So I thought. You'll not go over 120 now. You've lost about 70 pounds. Oh, it's a fact. You see, the body is most all water, and on this desert in the summer, a man just dries up and blows away. 70 pounds, exclaimed Adam, incredulous. But when he glanced at his shrunken hands, he believed the incomprehensible fact. I must be skin and bones. Mostly bones, but they're long, heavy bones, and if you ever get any flesh on them, you'll be a darn big man. I'm glad they're not going to bleach white on the desert, where I've seen so many of these last 10 years. You saved my life? Suddenly Adam queried. Boy, there's no doubt of that, returned the other. Another hour, you would have been finished. I thank you, but so help me God, I wish you hadn't, whispered Adam poignantly. Dismuke spent a strange gaze on Adam. What's your name? He asked. Adam halted over the conviction that he could never reveal his identity, and there leaped to his lips the name a loquacious Reagan had given him. Wansfell, he replied. Dismuke averted his gaze. Manifestly, he divined that Adam had lied. Well, it's no matter what a man calls himself in this country, he said. Only everybody and everything has to have a name. You're a prospector? Yes, but I'm more a miner. I hunt for gold. I don't waste no time trying to sell claims. Years ago, I set out to find a fortune in gold. My limit was $500,000. I've already got a third of it in banks and hid away safe. When you get your fortune, what then? Inquired Adam with thrilling curiosity. I'll enjoy life. I have no ties, no people. Then I'll see the world, replied the prospector in deep and sonorous voice. A wonderful passion radiated from him. Adam saw a quiver run over the huge frame. This Dismuke evidently was as extraordinary in character as in appearance. Adam felt the man's strangeness, his intelligence, and the inflexible will and fiery, yet all at once Adam felt steal over him an emotion of pity that he could not understand. How strange men were. At this juncture, the prospector was compelled to drive the burros out of camp. Then he attended to his cooking over the fire, and presently brought a bowl of steaming food to Adam. Eat this slow with a spoon, he said gruffly. Never forget that a man starved for grub or water can kill himself quick. During Adam's long, drawn-out meal, the sun set, and the mantle of heat seemed to move away for the coming of shadows. Adam found that his weakness was greater than he had supposed, rendering the effort of sitting up one he was glad to end. He lay back on the blankets, waiting to think over his situation rather than fall asleep. But he found himself very drowsy, and his mind vaguely wandered until it was a blank. Upon awakening, he saw the first gray dawn arch the sky. He felt better, almost like his old self, except for that queer sensation of thinness and lightness, most noticeable when he lifted his hand. Dismukes was already astir, and there, a few rods from camp, stood the ludicrous burros, as if they had not moved all night. Adam got up and stretched his limbs, pleased to find that he appeared to be all right again, except for a little dizziness. Dismukes evinced gladness at the fact of Adam's improvement. "Good," he exclaimed. "You'd be strong enough to ride a burro today, but it's going to be hot. Like yesterday, we'd better not risk traveling." "How do you know it's going to be as hot as yesterday?" inquired Adam. "I can tell by the feel and smell of the air, and mostly that dull lead-colored haze you see over the mountains." Adam thought the air seemed cool and fresh, but he did see a dull pall over the mountains. Farther toward the east, where the sunrise lifted an immense and wondrous glow, this haze was not visible. The remark of Dismukes sent the riding of a burro about the riding of a burro disturbed Adam. This kindly prospector meant to take him on to his destination. Impossible. Adam had fled to the desert to hide, and the desert must hide him, alive or dead. The old clamoring emotions knocked at his heart. Adam felt gratitude toward Dismukes for not questioning him, and that forbearance made him want to tell something of his story. Yet, how reluctant he was to open his lips on that score. He helped Dismukes with the simple morning meal, and afterwards with odds and ends of task, all the time cheerful and questioning, putting off what he knew was inevitable. The day did come on hot, so hot that life was just bearable for men and beasts in the shade of the big ironwood tree. Adam slept some of the hours away. He awoke stronger, with a more active mind. Of the next meal, Dismukes permitted Adam to eat heartily, and later, while Dismukes smoked and Adam sat before the campfire, the moment of revelation came quite unexpectedly. "Lonsfeld, you'll not be going to Yuma with me tomorrow," asserted Dismukes quietly. The words startled Adam. He dropped his head. No, thank you. I can't go," he replied, trembling. The sound of his voice agitated him further. "But tell me or not, just as you please. I'm a man you can trust." The kindliness and a nameless power invested in this speech broke down what little restraint remained with Adam. I can't go. I'm an outcast. I must hide in the desert," burst out Adam, covering his face with his hands. "Was that why you came to the desert?" Yes. But boy, you came without a canteen or grub or burro or gun or anything. In all my years on the desert, I'd never seen the like of that before, and only a miracle saved your life. That miracle was Jenny's eyes. You owe your life to a long-eared, white-faced burro. Jenny has eyes like a mountain sheep. She saw you miles off, and such luck won't be yours twice. You can't last on this desert without the things to sustain life. How did it happen that I found you here alone without anything?" No time. I had to run," panted Adam. "What did you do? Don't be afraid to tell me. The desert is a place for secrets, and it's a lonely place where a man learns to read the souls of other men when he meets them. You're not vicious. But never mind. Tell me without wasting more words. Maybe I can help." "No one can help me," cried Adam. "That's not so," quickly spoke up Dismukes, his voice deep and rolling. "Someone can help you, and maybe it's me." Here Adam completely broke down. I did something awful." "No crime on, boy, say it was no crime, earnestly returned the prospector. Oh, my God, yes, it was a crime, sobbed Adam, shuddering. But, man, I swear, horrible as it was, I'm innocent, I swear that. Believe me, I was driven by wrongs, by hate, by taunts. If I'd stood them longer, I'd have been a white-livered coward. But I was driven half drunk. Well, ejaculated Dismuke, shaking his shaggy head. It's bad, but I believe you, and you needn't tell me any more. Life is hell. I was young once, and now you've got to hide away from men to live on the desert, to be one of us wanderers of the wastelands. Yes, I must hide, and I need to live, to suffer, to atone. Boy, do you believe in God? Asked the prospector. I don't know. I think so, replied Adam, lifting his head and striving for composure. My mother was religious, but my father was not. Well, if you believed in God, your case would not be hopeless. But some men, a few of the many wanderers, find God out here in the walls. Maybe you will. Can you tell me what you think you want to do? Oh, to go alone into the loneliest place, to live there for years, forever, replied Adam with passion. Alone, that is my way, and I understand how you feel, what you need. Are you going to hunt gold? No. Have you any money? Yes, more than I'll ever need. I'd like to throw it all away or give it to you, but it was my mother's, and I promised her I'd not squander it, that I'd try to save. Boy, never mind, and I don't want your money, interrupted Dismukes, and I don't do any fool trick with it. You'll need it to buy outfits. You can always trust Indians to go to the freighting post for you. But never let a white man in this desert know you got money. That's a hard comparison, and it's justified. I'm already sick with the love men have for money, said Adam bitterly. And now to figure out and make good all that brag of mine, went on Dismukes reflectively. I'll need only 2 days' grub to get you to Yuma. There's one sure water hole, and I can give you one of my canteens. And Jenny, the burro that saved your life, she's tricky, but a blame good burro. And by making up enough bread, I can spare the oven. So all told, I guess I can outfit you good enough for you to reach a canyon up here to the west, where Indians live. I know them. They're good. You can stay with them until the hot weather passes. No danger of any white men running across you there, but you mustn't let me have all your outfit, protested Adam. I'm not. It's only the grub in one burro. Won't you run a risk with only 2 days' rations? Once failed, every move you make on this desert is a risk, replied Dismuke seriously. Learn that right off, but I'm sure only accidents of unforeseen circumstances can ever make risks for me now. I'm what they call a desert rat. You are most kind, said Adam, choking up, to help a stranger this way. Boy, I don't call that help, declared Dismukes. That's just doing for a man as I'd want to be done by. When I talked about help, I meant something else. What? God knows I need it. I'll be grateful. I'll do as you tell me, replied Adam, with the strange thrill stirring in him. You're a boy, no matter if you're bigger than most men. You've got the mind of a boy. What a damn pity you've got to do this hiding game. Under strong feeling, the prospector got up and, emptying his pipe, he began to take short strides to and fro in the limited shade cast by the ironwood tree. The indomitable forces of the man showed in his step and the way he carried himself. Presently he turned to Adam, and the great ox eyes burned intensely. Wansfeld, if you were a man, I'd never feel the way I do, but you're only a youngster. You're not bad. You've had bad luck. And for you, I can break my rule, and I'll do it if you're in earnest. I've never talked about the desert, about its secrets, what it's taught me, but I'll tell you what the desert is, how it'll be your salvation, how to be a wanderer of the wasteland. It's to be strong, free, and happy, if you're honest, if you're big enough for it. Dismukes, I swear I'm honest and I'll be big, by God, or I'll die trying, declared Adam passionately. The prospector gave Adam a long, steady stare, a strange gaze such as must have read his soul. Wansfeld, if you can live on the desert, you'll grow like it, he said, solemnly, as if he were pronouncing a benediction. Adam gathered from the speech that Dismukes meant to unbosom himself of many secrets of this wonderful wasteland. Evidently, however, the prospector was not then ready to talk further. With thoughtful mien and plodding gait, he resumed his short walk to and fro. It struck Adam then that his appearance was almost as ludicrous as that of his burros, yet at the same time his presence somehow conveyed a singular sadness. Years of loneliness burdened the wide-bowed shoulders of this desert man. Adam divined then in a gust of gratitude that this plodding image of Dismukes would always remain in his mind as a picture, a symbol of the actual good in human nature. The hot day closed without Adam ever venturing out of the shade of the tree. Once or twice he had put his hand in a sunny spot to feel the heat, and it had burned. The night mantled down with its tense silence, all-embracing, and the stars began to glow white. As Dismukes sat down near Adam in the glow of the campfire, it was manifest from the absence of his pipe and the penetrating possession taking power in his eyes that he was under the dominance of a singular passion. Wansfeld, he began in a low, deep voice, it took me many years to learn how to live on the desert. I had the strength and the vitality of 10 ordinary men. Many times in those desperate years was I close to death from thirst, from starvation, from poison water, from sickness, from bad men, and last though not least from loneliness. If I had met a man like myself as I am now, I might have been spared a hell of suffering. I did meet desert men who could have helped me, but they passed me by. The desert locks men's lips. Let every man save his own life, find his own soul. That's the unwritten law of the wastelands of the world. I've broken it for you because I want to do by you as I'd have liked to be done by, and because I see something in you. Dismukes paused here to draw a long breath. In the flickering firelight, he seemed a squatting giant, immovable by physical force, and of a will unquenchable while life lasted. Men crawl over the desert like ants, whose nests have been destroyed and who have become separated from one another, went on Dismukes. They all know the lure of the desert. Each man has his own idea of why the desert claims him. Mine was gold, is gold, so that someday I can travel over the world rich and free and see life. Another man's will be the need to hide, or the longing to forget, or the call of adventure, or hate of the world, or love of a woman. Another class is that of bad men, robbers, murderers. They are many. There are also many men and a few women who just drift or wander or get lost in the desert. And out of all of these, if they stay in the desert, only few survive. They die or they're killed. The great American desert, it's a vast place, and it's covered by unmarked graves in it and bleaching bones. I've seen so many. Dismukes paused again while his broad breast heaved with a sigh. I was talking about what men think of the desert, what they think the desert means to them. In my case, I say gold. And I say that as the other man will claim he loves the silence or the color or the loneliness. But I'm wrong, and so is he. The great reason why the desert holds men lies deeper. I can feel that, but I've never had the brains to solve it. I do know, however, that life on this wasteland is fierce and terrible. Plants, reptiles, beasts, birds, and men all have to fight for life far out of proportion to what's necessary in fertile parts of the earth. You will learn that early, and if you are a watcher and a thinker, you'll understand it. The desert is no place for white men. An oasis is fit for Indians. They survive there, but they don't thrive, and I respect the Indians. It will be well for you to live a while with Indians. And now what I most want you to know is this. The speaker's pause this time was impressive, and he raised one of his huge hands like a monstrous claw, making a gesture at once eloquent and strong. When the desert claims men, it makes most of them beasts. They sink to that fierce level in order to live. They're trained by the eternal strife that surrounds them. A man of evil nature surviving in the desert becomes more terrible than a beast. He is a vulture, on the other hand. There are men whom the desert makes like it. Yes, fierce and elemental and terrible, like the heat and storm and the avalanche, but greater in another sense, greater through that eternal strife to live beyond any words of mine to tell. What such men have lived, the patience, the endurance, the toil, the fights with men, and all that makes the desert, the wanderings and perhaps in tortures, the horrible loneliness that must be fought hardest by mind as well as action. All these struggles are beyond ordinary comprehension and belief. But I know I've met a few such men, and if it's possible for divinity of God to walk abroad on the earth in the shape of mankind, it was invested in them. The reason must be that in the development by the desert, in case of these few men who did not retrograde, the spiritual kept pace with the physical. It means these men never forgot, never reverted to mere unthinking instinct, never let the hard, fierce, brutal action of survival of the desert kill their souls. Spirit was stronger than body. I've learned this of one of these men, though I never had the power to attain it. It takes brains. I was only fairly educated. And though I've studied all my years on the desert and never gave up, I wasn't big enough to climb as high as I can see. I tell you all this, Wansfield, because it may be your salvation. Never give up to the desert or to any of its minions. Never cease to fight. You must fight to live, and so make that fight equally for your mind and your soul. Thus you will repent for your crime, whatever that was. Remember, the secret is never to forget your hold on the past, your memories, and through thinking of them to save your mind and apply it to all that faces you out here. Rising from his seat, Dismukes made a wide sweeping gesture symbolic of a limitless expanse. And the gist of all this talk of mine, this hope of mine to do for you as I have been done by, is this, that if you fight and think together like a man meaning to repent of his sin, somewhere out there in the loneliness and silence, you'll find God. With that, he abruptly left the campfire to stride off into the darkness, and the sonorous roll of his last words seemed to linger on the quiet air. Every one of his intense words had been burned into Adam's sensitive mind in characters and meanings never to be forgotten. Dismukes had found eager and fertile soil for the planting of the seeds of his toil-earned philosophy. The effect upon Adam was profound, and so wrought upon his emotions that the black and hateful consciousness which had returned to haunt him was as but a shadow of his thought. Adam stared out into the night where Dismukes had vanished. Something great had happened. Was the man Dismukes a fanatic, a religious wanderer of the wasteland, who imagined he had found in Adam an apt pupil, or who had preached a sermon because the opportunity presented? No, the prospector had the faith to give out of his lesson of life on the desert. His motive was the same as when he had risked much to follow Adam, staggering blindly across the hot sands to his death. And as Adam felt the mounting passion of conviction, of gratitude, his stirred mind seemed suddenly to burst into a radiant and scintillating inspiration of resolve to be the man Dismukes had described, to fight and to think and to remember as had no one ever before done on the desert. It was all that seemed left for him. Repentance, expiation, true to himself at the last, in spite of a horrible and fatal blunder. "Oh, gird, gird, my brother," he cried, shuddering at the whisper of that name. "Wherever you are in spirit, hear me. I'll rise above wrongs and hate and revenge. I'll remember our boyhood, how I loved you. I'll atone for my crime. I'll never forget. I'll fight and think to save my soul and pray for yours. Hear me and forgive you who drove me out into the wastelands." End of chapter 8.